Okay, so this is me at Kevin Blair. I'm the Director of Talent Acquisition in EMEA for Cisco Systems. What that looks like in real terms is I have about 55 recruiters in my team, about 25 other support people, resources, administrators, etc. I look after recruitment in 125 countries, which is a bit bigger than Europe and a little bit bigger than EMEA because I have some Asia Pacific stuff. And I've not been in that job a huge amount of time. I've only been in this job 4 months, right? So I recently joined from Salesforce.com where I spent a couple of years, and before that I spent 6 years at Oracle. So what we're really going to go through is partially my strategy. I'm partially laying out what I'm going to do and trying to give you some insights. I don't speak at many of these events. I think I've done 2 in the last 2 or 3 years. One happened to be actually last week in Amsterdam. And the reason I don't is because I think that as a head of recruitment within a technology company, I think that as an industry, we have a propensity to eulogize to the rest of the talent acquisition industry about how fantastic we are, about how we're so far ahead of you all, we're so much better, right? And I don't get that. I actually think we're constrained by our own belief of that we're very narrow-minded in our approach. So I try not to go because I really try to look for original content in some of these things. So I go to the events. I tend not to speak, because as I said, I don't kind of like the sound of my own voice. And it's interesting because when Kevin Green was talking before, he mentioned about that guy, that complete muppet on The Apprentice. He's like, oh God, don't say that. Nearly always a technology recruiter. It's cringeworthy when you're kind of watching it. You're like, God, it's the recruiter. You know, he's going to turn out to be a complete muppet. You know. So I try to avoid watching that as well. But yeah, so just trying to give you an insight. And I think one of the things, again, that I'm going to try and do as we go through this, I'm going to try and talk to you about what I see and some of the companies that I admire what they're doing. And most of them are outside of technology, actually. Because what I'm trying to get to is kind of a kind of different viewpoint. Because as I said, when you kind of hear a lot of people on stage, they talk about the theory of talent acquisition, right? They talk about, hey, this is what you should be doing, or this is what we're doing. They don't own a number. I own a number. I own a headcount number. I'm given a number at the start of the year. I hit that, I keep my job. I don't hit that, I lose my job. Okay, and that's the way I've kind of existed for the last 10 or 11 years. So one of the things that I like to think is this is application, right? This is actually what we're doing, and these are the things that I'm going to be doing and going to be working on. There's a guy, I think he's coming this afternoon, a guy called Bill Borman, who was asked a question at one of these conferences a couple of years ago, and they kind of said, talking about assessing different talent acquisition leaders in different companies and what's your opinion and who's the best. And he started to reel off different names and suggesting why they were good. And he mentioned my name. He said, and there's Kevin Blair. He's very practical. And I'm not sure he thought he was paying me a compliment, but actually he really was. Because I want to be practical, right? I don't want to be Mr. in the cloud, Mr. Strategy. I'm practical. This year I've got to fill 4,000 jobs, right? My budget is less than it should be. My team is not in the right locations. They're not all performing to their optimum. I have the problems, right? I have to solve for these things. So as we go through this, we'll try and have a look at some practical, and it won't be a eulogizing about technology recruiters, right? So imagine if, right? Look at this. So this is imagine if we had this. This is our nirvana, right? So this is recruitment success. Our objectives achieved, engaged talent communities, cost-effective, strong employee brand. All of these things, fantastic. One I'd probably add to that is, unlimited levels of diversity, right? I mean, I don't know if any of you saw, it's worth checking out. There's a US, I think it's US Today article was published last week. Google was the first company in our sector that's released their diversity statistics to the press. It's Google, right? It's a big PR thing, right? Oh, look at us, we're so bad, right? I mean, we're terrible. We haven't got enough, women or ethnic minorities or whatever. And they were right. The stats were terrible. They were shockingly bad. And Google have a diversity budget that's probably about the size of my recruiting budget, right? And if they're crap at it, then I feel kind of better about it, right? But this is kind of recruitment nirvana. So what this is saying is, this is how you should build your recruitment strategy. This is your recruitment strategy. This is where it should be working to. But I'm not so sure. I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all recruitment strategy. And as I said, when I listen to a lot of my peers and things they say, they always talk about your recruitment strategy, I don't really get it. And I talk to my team and I tell them you shouldn't really get it. Because what we don't need is a recruitment strategy, we need recruitment strategies. Because the demographic has completely changed. And again, Kevin Green kind of alluded to it. The people we're talking to are very different. You know, we've got our baby boomers who typically would have been born on there. By the way, you can tell how I'm not very HR, you know, kind of like slide people into the demographics and their base. But this is the reality, right? I mean, again, we've got to be practical, right? So our baby boomers, they're typically work-centric, independent, goal-orientated, and competitive, right? Our next Generation X, borderline 1980, interesting picture. But so our Generation X, typically 1963 to 1980. This is the area that I fit into, the demographic I fit into. Individualistic, technology adept, flexible, value work-life balance. We have our Gen Y. Tech-savvy, family-centric, achievement-orientated, team-orientated, attention-craving, similar to Kevin's picture, the me on the front of time, and expect diverse environments. Interest in the diverse environments keeps coming up with this generation, and another thing that kind of is often overlooked and become more prevalent in my sector is CSR, our corporate social responsibility strategy. I didn't used to talk about that 10 years ago. I mean, to be honest, I didn't even know when I first joined Oracle a long time ago, I didn't even know we had one. By the time I left, almost every candidate was asking, certainly every graduate was asking about it. And then Generation Z, I'm not sure about this. I think trying to engage with my 5-year-old right now would be challenging unless I put Peppa Pig in charge of staffing in the north of England. But aside dinosaur. But aside from that, only people with kids would get that, I guess. And then we have Generation Z. So no experience of an internet-free world, really important. Digital natives, multitaskers, reclusive, open about sharing personal information, virtual, incredibly short attention span, right? How can you have a recruitment strategy that works with all them, right? You can't. It's almost impossible, right? I mean, how can these guys be talking to these guys? There are common threads, obviously, and we'll kind of get to that in a second, but in reality, you know, recruitment strategies, wow, look at that, look at all them. God, it makes my head hurt when I see things like that, and my team kind of throw these things at me, and it's the latest things. So you kind of sat there thinking, right, I've got to talk to this whole community. Like, how do I do that? How do I kind of allocate resource? You know, this is, you know, where do I go and put my big bets? And the reality is you kind of have to work backwards. So everybody kind of says, you go to these things, and some people say, like, oh, you know, you should trial and error and you should keep going with it and all that. That's fantastic if you're Pfizer and you have, like, unlimited pots of cash. You can keep throwing money at these things. But for the rest of us in the real world where we have constraints, you know, we've got to kind of take a view on our bets. So it's actually the reverse of try everything and come back, which is where I was in my strategy maybe, I'd say 4 years ago, when, you know, 5 years ago when social was becoming much bigger. It was kind of like, oh, we should try and do everything. Like, we should try and, like, you know, should try this, we should try Bebo and, you know, MySpace and all these other now defunct things, right? Because that's where we thought we were going to get our candidates from. So it's actually I've actually gone the opposite way, and I actually now believe that actually it has to be much more tactical in terms of our approach to these things, and we have to take a view. So failing to plan is planning to fail when you go into this thing, in my opinion, right? And this is, you know, again, the benefit of the experience of having gone through the other way and then gone through this way. And hope is definitely not a strategy. Do not just go and run at these things. So the 5 easy steps to finding your next hire online. So, you know, define your target audience. So again, we look at the slide we've just had a second ago, and we think, okay, is our target audience going to be in there, right? You know, and it's, I guess, you know, one of the things I probably should say is 5 easy steps. The first step is obviously throw it out to TheJobPost, right? And if it's technical stuff overload. But aside from that, would be to go into, you know, defining the target audience from the skill set. And start to think about actually which generation am I trying to talk to? You know, it's not being controversial, it's not being ageist or any of those other things. You know, realistically, we can segment our base. If you're not going to look for, you know, CFOs in Generation Z unless you're a hot startup, right? You know, and but if you are a hot startup, then that's where you do look. So that's where you define your thing. So you need to define where your audience is going to be set. So defining the audience from the skill set, and then define the likely generations. So again, back to the previous point, like, where are these people going to sit? Who are we going to talk to? Define the country. So again, you know, it's not, as someone who oversees recruitment in 125 countries, you know, there's not one way to approach this. I don't have this overriding social strategy for attracting candidates that applies to all of my countries. I have some generic ones that roll up to an EMEA level. So I have Facebook, I have LinkedIn, all these other things. But in reality, we take it down to a very tactical level. You know, we want to have decent engagement. Define the channels of communication. So again, back to the previous slide, okay, putting all these three together, 1, 2, 3, we need to talk, we need to define the communication channel that's right for them. And that's the one we need to back. And then we engage, interact, and position with targeted branding materials. So again, this is one of the things that sometimes I think when we started out trying to attract people through social and online, social platforms and online, is we went out with very generic messaging. We thought, that's great, we're going to tell everyone what a great company we are and all that kind of stuff. Like, everyone's saying we're a great company to work for. That's what I'm paid to do. I'm the head of recruitment at a technology company. Of course I'm going to say we're a great company to work for. What we needed to do is push collateral that showed we were a good company to work for, that demonstrated it, that allowed people to get to these assumptions themselves. So again, it's branded, targeted branding materials, talking to SEs, sales engineers, about SE relevant stuff, talking to account executives about account executive relevant stuff, talking to the techies about coffee, and then the stuff that they want to see, because they seem to hang out in Starbucks a lot. So the key takeaway is know who your audience is, know where to find them, and know how to communicate with them through a medium and on a level they can relate to. This will differ by job function level seniority. So again, pointing back to my first slide, is it's not strategy, it's strategies. It's segmenting what you're doing. It's not, and you'll probably have people that will come on stage, maybe even today, that will tell you about the wide strategy and the big hit. Again, I'm trying to give you the benefit of my experience and what I see in other companies and what's attractive to me. Okay, so targeted recruitment approach and engagement. So here's our generations back, our baby boomers. So likely to use LinkedIn, concern about privacy, sharing too much information, traditional executive search and mapping techniques, in-mail plus phone call, personal reach. Our Generation X, likely to use LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, comfortable with email approach, corporate culture, and effect on home life, key importance, private about what is posted online. Our Gen Y, social media's usual method of communication, expects to be found rather than applied. So again, as you think about all these kind of traditional online platforms that we used to use a couple of years ago, like JobSite and Monster and JobServe and all these places, like, where are they now, right? They didn't evolve, right? They relied on a market where people put themselves into the market. They didn't evolve, and they're comparable to where they were as organizations, they're tiny. Expects to engage on a personal level rather than a corporate level, wants to see corporate personality, expects constant feedback and collaboration through process. And Generation Z, my 5-year-old, what does she expect? Expects same experience of application and engagement on each device owned, expects speed and engagement, very open sharing of all information online, expects communication and engagement to occur online, expects to be able to define corporate culture and expectations of the role and talent brand at fingertips online on any device. So the way we talk to them, like the way we talk to different generations, so we talk about our channels, the way we talk to them. So historically, our baby boomers, it's a fairly basic level of communication. That's easy. This is when I was a recruiter, and my team probably don't believe I ever was, but I was. This was my life. This was it. Maybe even not Twitter. So it was it. It was like, that was kind of it. And then going into Generation X. Hang on a minute. This is getting a little bit more complicated. We're having to talk to them through a couple of different platforms here. This isn't as easy as it was. Oh God, Generation Y. Some of these I don't even know, right? It's like I speak to my 11-year-old and he kind of helps me out with some of them. But seriously, it's multiple platforms. It's not them that are using the multiple platforms. It's now us. And these guys, it's just these guys are running off into areas that many of you may not have even heard of, right? So they're even further ahead. And the difference is, if you look at the platforms, it's gone from being a very basic, obvious platform to talk to candidates to actually being injecting yourself into their life and their personal life and their social life, and the two emerging fundamentally over time. So it's a kind of it's a different approach. You'll notice one of the things that we left as consistent is that we still pick up the phone, right? So for all of this engagement, everybody still wants to have a conversation, right? And I kind of like that, because I don't think I'm particularly old school, because I kind of hate that. I think it's like kind of such a cliche, and I kind of hate all that corporate tossedom. But it's kind of like I'm still glad that we do still pick up the phone from a personal point of view, because I actually do think it is the most effective, and it shouldn't be lost within all of this. That at some point we're going to have that direct interface. Okay, so a couple of the companies I really admire, and none of them are Cisco in this, right? As I said before, I'm in 4 months, I'm trying to build something here, and I don't want to stand here and eulogize about Cisco and what Cisco's doing and all those fantastic things. I actually wanted to talk to you in a way that, companies that we can maybe relate to. So this is Taco Bell. You know Taco Bell, yeah? It's a US, my brother lives in New York, calls it toxic hell. He doesn't like the food, but Taco Bell is, I actually like Taco Bell food. I must be like have a real bad uncultured taste for Mexican food. But this is you should jive onto Pinterest. If you do one thing today, I would really encourage you to Google Taco Bell experience or employment, right? And Google will take you to here. This is incredible. I mean, like, look how different this is to typical job posting, right? I mean, like, it's employee driven. And when you're employee driven, what are you? You're authentic, right? It feels authentic. I'm starting to feel like, hey, like I'm starting to get a sense of what Taco Bell is like here. They're starting to show that they're like kind of connecting with their friends. Hey, you should work at Taco Bell. They're showing that, they're subtly implying that, hey, you're an intern. They're talking about the product. Hey, this isn't talking about recruitment. They're saying, eat a beef crunchy burrito. Apply to Taco Bell. So they're starting to tie back to product. It's not just that, hey, we're a great company to work for. It's like, hey, do you eat tacos? Well, you like them. You can work with them every day, whatever. And again, but I mean, the difference is, look how much little there is written, right? Look, there's no writing, right? It's fantastic. It's very visual. I looked at it. Like the first time I saw this, I was like, wow, it's incredible. Like I didn't feel compelled to. I mean, maybe if a head of recruitment come up at Taco Bell, I might. But it's certainly it's fantastic. I think it's such a good way to communicate with a potential candidate base. And then if you look at more than just the pictures, they provide the mobile app to apply. So they're kind of indicating apply to Taco Bell. We've got it in their iPhone task list. Display job requirements in fun infographics. Behind the scenes videos, using hashtags. I mean, it's talking to everything that their demographic want to see, right? Which is probably building from the bottom, so the Generation Y, Generation Z. Okay, so if you just click the video, so this is another company called Aviary. I'm not very good at saying that. So I don't know if we can click the video on this. Who's ever's in control? Do I do it? Are you going to do it?
You might do it.
Okay.
Yep, got it.
Right, it has terrible production values, right? And there's a load of like kind of TV guys kind of down in the room, that kind of thing, has terrible production values. But what does it feel? It feels authentic, right? It doesn't say anything. Like, there's hardly any writing. It's like, this is just online. It's like, actually, you know what? That's the finishing statement. Like, those guys look like a little bit nuts, right? I'm going to go and find out a little bit more, and I might want to connect with them. It's quick details. It's like, this is who we're hiring for. This is how you connect to us. It's a fantastic way to kind of position themselves. I'm a frustrated pilot, so when I was growing up, I wanted to be a pilot. So I have a fondness for this industry anyway. But you look, again, to look outside yet another sector. So again, this is not technology eulogizing, I'm glad to say. But we're jumping into yet another sector. We talk about Qantas. So this is Qantas's careers page. What you have is the ability to create a sense of community through your careers with these guys. But look, it's not just our traditional ones. It's not our Facebook. It's not our tweet. It's not a Google+. No, you can Pinterest it. You can share it. They're trying to create a sense of community through their careers page. So that, again, it's practical application. So those guys, they come and they kind of talk about, you need to build all these talent communities. Well, it's practical. You can do it. This is how you connect to it, right? And then, LinkedIn. So you can't go through all of this because, again, when I sometimes go to some of these things, like everyone's talking about the next thing. It's like the Bebo, the Keek, whatever the next big thing is. And I think one of the things that from my sector that you can't ignore is that we still get 90% of our hires from LinkedIn that we recruit externally. Those are nine, right? I don't know if anyone from LinkedIn is in the room, but we all push out there, hoping for the alternative to LinkedIn, right? Because anyone's got a recruiter account, you know what it's like when it comes to negotiations for your contract. You basically get a gun put to your head and told what the price is, and that's it. Because they know, right? They kill the market. It's kind of like they have the best product. I don't disagree. It's a fantastic product. I mean, how it would be weird to try and imagine a world without it. So the important thing here is, is not forget that, this still is where we should be doing our, applying our resources. One of the things that Microsoft done that I really liked, and again, a competitive company for us in terms of talent, is they built out a community within LinkedIn, and they're starting to talk to very specific areas of their business, which is the developer community of a certain generation in a certain location. So back to our 5 steps is, they're starting to segment their demographic within LinkedIn, and they're creating this community. So they have 896 members joining the first month, 33% click-through rate, and they now have 2,800 members of developers that would be interested in Microsoft in Australia, right? And that's hardly been going. Right? I mean, they just kind of built this up really quickly. So again, it's kind of hitting the key messages, the right demographic on the right platform with the right messaging. And then Intuit, so again, another company that's kind of doing something in terms of a traditional platform now, because I think for us, like as we go into the next couple of years, I think that Facebook has become a little bit more of a traditional platform, because most of us are on Facebook in terms of careers, right? But the difference here, and one of the things I really liked about Intuit, is that they've developed their network on the basis that it's not a click-through. They're living in Facebook. So the difference where you normally have, and we have it on our page, you go in, Cisco job, you click through, you go to a Cisco website, it points you somewhere else. These guys are living in Facebook, right? They're putting their roles right into Facebook, and they're giving you the platform outside of Facebook to go on and take it on and move to another area. So again, you can share it, you can create, you can drive it into your community, and it's something a little bit differently. It's actually saying, okay, well, we're going to commit to this platform, and we're going to live in it because we think that our demographic, which it probably is, because they mostly hire in a certain demographic, is going to exist within Facebook, and so that's our big bet. Okay, so some simple planning creativity will transform the way you recruit and the results you get. A little bit of a graphic here, and again, just trying to demystify it a little bit. Don't listen to the naysayers. The social recruiting road is not nearly as painful as they would have you believe. And I think, again, to demystify some of it, as I think there was, I think the key messages, from my perspective, that I give to my team, and when I go in, and as I said, I've gone from a very progressive company around this to a less progressive that I'm trying to build up, is allow some creativity in your teams, allow some freedom for them to go at it, allow them to kind of control the destiny around this a little bit. But the important thing is what I point back to at the start, is you have to plan, you have to be tactical. Remove the strategy, get the strategies. The strategies is what's the tactical bit. And that's me done. So.